Hello, hello, hello. Am I audible? What I was telling?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you're audible now.
Just a minute. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
I was talking. So what I last lecture,
Excuse me, sir, your voice is breaking.
there is some noise. Is it okay now? Hello,
Yeah, it's not breaking anymore.
hello. Is it okay?
Yes, sir, it's better.
Okay, fine. So what I was telling in the last lecture, we completed most, that is method operation sequence technique, and which is universally accepted, and this is replaced. This has replaced, most has replaced conventional time study, and it is more accurate also, and has been accepted by union also on behalf of workers. So that was important from examination point of view. We will also see now OSHA standard, which is important from examination point of view. We'll quickly go through this. OSHA stands for Occupational Safety and Health Administration. So how to develop the safe workplaces and which standards are applied for the workplaces in order to get the certification. Basically related to occupational safety and health. And this standard is not to be confused with your quality management system, not to be confused with your ISO 9000, 9001, 9002. ISO standards, they are called the quality management system. That is, you have a business and your business conforms to the standards laid down by International Organization for the Standards. ISO का full form है, it is not International Standards Organization. The full form of ISO is International Organization for Standards, and its office is in Geneva, that is Switzerland, and they have started this standard in 1987, and thereafter there are many revisions. But don't relate ISO with OSHA standards. Both are different. ISO standard is also mandatory if you want to enter into European market. So here, for the workplace safety, all the industries or employers, they have to satisfy these OSHA standards irrespective of the number of employees, whether they have 5 employees or they have 50,000 or 5 lakh employees like TCS. So here all employees must provide a right to know hazardous materials training program to their staff. So they have to provide all the information to their staff. To their staff means everyone, right from helper to the manager. So basically it deals with how to avoid the accidents, injuries, and mainly when the workers or the employees they are working with hazardous materials. And mostly this hazardous material means like nuclear power plant, radioactive power plant, or in heat treatment. Not only hazardous material, but even hazardous place also in chemical process plant. So in chemical process plant, certain chemicals are hazardous, like concentrated acid or phosphoric acid. So how to deal with that? And there can be many hazardous material. There are responsibilities from employer part of you. So employer matlab malak, industry. So he has to design and implement the plan. He has to provide the training also, safety training. He has to keep a track of hazardous materials inventory separately. He has to see that the chemicals or any hazardous materials they are handled safely, carefully. So this handling of the hazardous material is different than waste disposal. For the waste disposal, again there are different standards which employer has to satisfy. Mostly every chemical process plant they have ETP, that is effluent treatment plan. ETP, effluent treatment plan. So that is about waste disposal. Means in this ETP, whatever the waste chemicals they have to be treated and then only they have to dispose it out into the sea water or wherever it is as per the norms. But before sending it outside the industry, like in New Bombay, there are, especially Vasi, there are many chemical process industries. So before they let their waste liquid outside their premises, they have to treat it. They have to reduce the waste. They have to reduce the contaminants, and then only they have to send it or dispose of outside. So ATP, that is effluent treatment plant, in chemical process plant you will see, and it's a mandatory. In many of the textile industries, if you visit Dadar, Prabhadevi, now many textile industries are closed, but you will see every textile industry, they have their own ETP plant, effluent treatment plant. Bombay Dyeing bolo, Century bolo, Nirlon. So not only liquid, even the solid also, or even semi-solid also, and even gases also. So gases you might have seen everywhere, like bakeries. So they have to have a chimney every bakery. It's compulsory, so that all the flue gases, the employer he has to build the chimney up to certain height. There are norms what should be the height of the chimney, so that the flue gases or the smoke gases they go quite above the reference level. Even if you visit the premises where the textile industries are located, there you will see the peoples who are residing nearby. They suffer from lung diseases. Quite a quite a peoples they suffer from lung diseases, and it was observed that certain safety norms were not followed. Were not followed means actually it was not detected. What it was, because these textile industries know their raw material is cotton. Their raw material is cotton. So it was observed that all tiny cotton pieces, very small tiny cotton pieces, while processing, like all these textile industries, they will receive the cotton bales. Cotton bales में क्या रहता है, जो कॉटन रहता है वो दबा हुआ रहता है. इट इज इन प्रेस कंडीशन. कॉटन जो रहता है वो फॉरेस्ट में से कॉटन सीड से लेते हैं और बाद में उसको प्रेस करते हैं, एंड देन दे मेक इट इन द bells form, and then from the cotton, the very first department is spinning department, where the yarn is produced from this cotton. So these bells are again खोल देते हैं और वहां से उससे हम लोग यान बनाते हैं, एंड देन फ्रॉम द यान वीविंग डिपार्टमेंट में क्लोथ बनते हैं. Cloth is like your X and Y. So one is horizontal is called the warp and vertical is called the weft. Okay, so दो धागा रहते हैं X and Y, and you get a any cloth. So when they are processing, when it is untied, when the belts are untied, the cotton it goes into the air, small. If bigger cotton particles they are visible, but the small tiny cotton particles they go into the air, and the surrounding residents they breathe inside. And this cotton, it was observed that all these cottons, goes into their lungs. And it was diagnosed that because of this cotton, they have this lung diseases or respiratory diseases, and suitable action was taken. This was also one of the reason for closing down the textile industries in that residential location. One of the reason, they were precious because that is a prime location, and they were precious on the employer by the nearby residents. So this is what is your one of the example of occupational hazards. Right to know, that is RTI. Nowadays you just go online and just file it, and you will get all the information whatever you need. So even X-ray exposure regulations. So whatever you want, you can get the informations. Right to know, right? Today we call it the right to information, that is RTI. So what are the employer's responsibilities? They have to set the policies and establish protocols for the plan, assign responsibilities for areas of the plan to specific people and supporting them. So they have to have a team who will work on this OSHA, that is occupational health standards and practices. Otherwise, they can be sued in the court, because safety and health is most important. So what is the role of employees? Employees must know where the hazardous material is kept. Many industries there are designated places and it is written also hazardous material, safety zone, precautions, what is to be taken before entering. So employees must know those places. They should know how to use the information resources and safety equipment properly. And for this, you are aware that mock drills are conducted. Many times it was observed that the employer they have everything like they have compressor, they have fire tanks, they have water tanks, they have hydrants, they have sprinkler system, but it has not been maintained properly. And whenever the fire takes place, and that time it was observed that these are not functioning, even fire extinguishers also. So it is compulsory to conduct the mock drills also. It is compulsory to maintain the record when the mock drill was conducted, when it was refilled. So every equipment you visit in a plant, fire extinguisher, when last it was refilled, when it was tested, when the mock drill was conducted, everything will be mentioned on the paper, and that paper is glued. It is stick to the equipment. Hello, hello, Martin. Are you there? Hello.
Yes, this is audible.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. Martin, he is there. Martin D'Souza. He's not there. Okay. Now this is very exhaustive. So you just focus on whatever is important from examination point of view. So OSHA has supported the industry by maintaining hospitals in case of any hazards or accidents. Like you may be knowing ESIC, that is those who are paid or those salary is less than 15,000, they are eligible for this benefit since they are covered under ESIS. So if anything goes wrong with them and they need any medical help, if they are registered under this Employee State Insurance Corporation ESIC, and there are many ESIC hospitals in Bombay, Andheri में है, कांदिवली में है, many. So if the employee's salary is less than 15,000, it is covered under this ESIC. So if anything goes wrong, if he needs any medical attention, then he can visit the hospital and he gets free of charge medical help. That is mandatory, it is compulsory. And if this benefit is not provided, ESIC benefit below, yeah, Provident Fund below. Provident Fund also, it's again a privilege or it's again a benefit which employer has to provide to the employee, and it's compulsory that employer also has to contribute some amount. If he doesn't contribute, then penalty can be imposed. Same for ESIC also, employer has to contribute to the hospitals, to the provident funds. If they do not contribute, then they can be fined. So every employer has to follow the standards. Then it is duty of employer that their employee knows all the requirements. So they have to issue a written communication plan. And the inventory of hazardous material has to be updated. The employer should have MSDS, that is material safety data sheets. These data sheets are supplied by the manufacturer. Like suppose a certain employer, like say Bombay Dyeing and Company or say Century Rayon, if they have some hazardous powder which is required in their dyeing department or any hazardous chemical which they required in dyeing department, then whoever is supplying that powder or that chemical, that supplier will give the data sheet. That data sheet will cover how to store that, where to store that, what should be the temperature of storage. Everything will be mentioned, and accordingly it has to be stored, that hazardous material, as per the data sheet which is provided by the supplier to the employer. All the containers should be properly labeled, and warning, we should have warning bells. Many times you also see the containers which are carrying these hazardous chemicals. So it is written in quite bold letter and big letters, hazardous material. So similarly, during the storage place or near to the storage place, they have to mention it. That what should be the temperature, because if the temperature rises, then it may cause fire and the accident may happen. So that has to be written in bold letters or legible letters. Handling is very important. Every employer, they should have their health and safety plan. Like suppose if something goes wrong, then what has to be done? Where the employee has to be taken? What should be the first aid treatment plan? And what should be the subsequent plan? Every department, every section, there will be a first aid box, and who is maintaining that first aid box and who is the in charge, who is the person to be contacted at the first hand if any accident happens. And that person will be trained. He will not be doctor, but at least he can do some preliminary help. By the time the employee is taken to the hospital. This is how it is labeled. And the label should be seen and read properly. Any new peoples or employees who are joining, they have to undergo the orientation program or induction training in which minimum 1 or 2 days are reserved only for safety, and that is usually in the beginning. You may be aware that whenever you visit plants like Godrej, and many of you might have visited also. So there, moment to enter, you are first explained about the safety practices that you have to observe while you visit the plant. Nobody is allowed to visit without safety shoes, without helmet, including girls also. Even there are norms on the clothes also. Sometimes some companies they insist on wearing the uniform, a particular uniform, a boiler suit, helmet, safety goggles, safety shoes, and sometimes the gloves also. That is depending upon the plant or the kind of environment you are visiting. Even the lady visitors are also not spared. They also everybody has to follow the norm. So this employee training is very important for the new as well as for the old also. For the old, the refresher training is carried out at regular intervals. No doubt, any certification program, like whether it is ISO or whether it is OSHA, any, whether it is BUQI or any standard, there is a lot of documentation. That is required. You can't help the documentation, keeping the manuals, keeping the track, keeping the records of the inspection, of the quality checks, mock drills. Everything is kept properly and has to be produced whenever auditor asks. So record keeping is very important, and it is a common complaint that all these standards it increases the documentation. But if you really maintain it properly, it pays. It pays. But you have to see that you implement it religiously, implement it properly, without any manipulation, and this you can get good inventory control. The accidents become zero. Employee turnover means like employee आज आया कल घर में बैठ गया वापस कल दूसरा आया accident happens, okay, again he has gone to the hospital. So this is called an employee turnover. So a good plant, a healthy plant will definitely decrease in employee turnover and insurance rates, as I told. So more the insurance, more the hazardous plant, the employer has to pay for that. So obviously it is better to invest in a safety environment, safety equipment. Majority of the accidents in the chemical process industry is due to the chemicals. See, these are the some kind of diseases that employee can get because of overexposure to the chemicals. That is heart ailments, heart-related problems, kidney and lung damages, etc., etc. And these are all considered as serious accidents. So, if employee is asking for some information, it is duty of employer to provide that information and not to fire that employee. At the same time, employee also has some responsibilities that every law, every rules and regulations, whatever has been made, he has to obey, he has to follow that. Like suppose if employer is telling that you have to wear helmets, you have to wear gloves. I have seen with my own eyes that employee doesn't wear the helmets. They doesn't wear the because they feel uncomfortable after some time, maybe after 1 hour, continuously wearing that helmet. So they ignore it. And remember, accident will happen once only. नॉर्मल ऐसा रहता है, अरे अभी तक कुछ नहीं हुआ मेरे को, क्या होने वाला है. दिस इज द नॉर्मल ट्रेंड. अभी तक कुछ नहीं हुआ तो क्या होने वाला है. बट रिमेंबर, accident will happen only once and that will take the life of the person. So that mindset, as an engineer or as a manager, you have to see that you have to change that mindset of the peoples who are working under you. Hmm? These are the different hazardous materials, radiations, anesthetic gases, disinfectants that employees meet on daily basis. So that has to be recognized and accordingly the action has to be taken. And this can cause serious injuries and death also. It will affect the environment, irritation to the skin, eyes. These are very common diseases. What is, see, the OSHA standard? They have specified, everything has been given clearly. What is the definition of active materials? What is the definition of infectious material? Infectious material मतलब होता है. That is, it can transmit germs or cause disease. Reactive material, that is, which can burn or explode when mixed with other materials. Ignitable materials, which can ignite or burn easily. Sorry. So prevention is always better than cure. So before you touch, you identify and learn about that material, get the information, and then only handle that. Employees should go through the warning labels which has been put by the employer. So whether it is primary containers or secondary containers, everything has to be labeled, identified. Everything has its place. That is, it is said that everything in its place and place for everything. So these MDSD sheets, that is data sheets, manufacturer data sheets, it contains all the health hazard data, protective equipment, procedures to be used for the safe handling, how to handle the acid, how to handle the powder, how to wash, what happens suppose if you inhale, or what happens if you by mistake if you swallow, how to clean your hands, which detergent you have to use, for how much time you have to use that detergent for cleaning, what type of gloves you have to use, everything is clearly mentioned. You can Google it and you can see some of the manufacturer data sheets, especially chemical manufacturers. And if it is not labeled properly, or if it is incorrectly labeled, like suppose like you have say two bottles of acids, one is dilute and another is concentrated, and beside that there is a water bottle also on your workplace, suppose dilute acid है, concentrated acid है, and पीने का पानी का bottle है. If they are not labeled properly, or if they are not identified, see ergonomic, see identification, then if people is thirsty and by mistake, suppose if he just drinks instead of taking water bottle, if he takes concentrated acid ka bottle and he is busy, huh? His mindset, he is concentrating on his work, and if he just take even one sip and can entirely damage his digestive system completely. Just one sip of concentrated acid, पूरा digestive system जल जाता है. And this type of accidents has happened. This type of accidents has happened in the industry. Sometimes even purposely also, deliberately, and sometimes unknowingly, sometimes with bad intentions. खुन्नस बोलते हैं ना, because of the clashes. Colleagues only they play the mischiefs, but as an employer you have to see that this thing doesn't happen, because who has played mischief, जिसको खुन्नस निकलना है वो पनिश होएगा. लेकिन what about a person whose complete digestive system is burned, or maybe he is on the bed of the death? What happens? Who is responsible? Finally the employer is responsible. So it is mandatory for the employer to have the MSDC sheets compulsory. Drugs, cleaning, X-ray chemicals, especially this is very much required in your X-ray room. Sterilization and surgical cases. Sterilization means that whatever equipment which has been used by the doctors or in any industry has to be sterile. Sterile means you have to heat it, or you have to keep it in a heated water. Normally around 100 degrees Celsius, 110 degrees Celsius, all the bacteria they get killed. Earlier, or you might have seen, doctor used to keep sterilizer. So एक को injection दिया तो he used to remove that needle and keep it in that sterilizer in order to sterile it. Nowadays we have disposable, but still you have to see whether they are using disposable or not, because just for few rupees, because एक disposable 15 रुपया का रहता है, so just for that 15 rupees people may use the used one. So that is what you have to check, and that is your right also. Wear gloves, aprons, goggles. If you visit Godrej, then this is compulsory. Goggle, helmet, and safety shoes. This is compulsory. And please see that you return the goggles once the visit is completed. Because once, just 3 years back, incident was happened. I was also there. There were some 50, 52 students, and 52 goggles were issued at the time of entry, and only 30 goggles were returned. So many students they carry the goggles with them. Then the CR, my God, he was in big trouble. So he has to contact each and every student, and somehow he could manage to get some 19 goggles back, and still three goggles were missing. And finally, we had to pay, from pocket for the goggle. It's a good practice to wash your hand always before eating, and wash your hand, and then again, do not make your hand dirty. So once you wash, your next step will be to eat. That's all. That washed hand should go to your mouth. Nothing in between. Before using pesticides, read the label, follow all directions, all this. These are the symptoms or occupational health alerts: headache, nausea, sweating, increase in acidity, eye and throat infection, hazards due to the gases. They can, cause fires, explosions. If you want to carry the compressed gas, then should not be rolled, dropped, or banged. Do not store near heat or sunlight. Ethylene oxide irritate lungs, cause chemical burns. So for every chemical, how to what are the remedial procedures. So that also hospitals or doctors know very well. It's not a, common treatment for each and every chemical. As far as possible, direct contact of the skin with the chemicals has to be avoided. So if there is any leak, Bhopal tragedy, gas tragedy, Bhopal. And first thing is that you have to stop the source. You have to vacate the area, and they have to go to the safe place. These are again, the symptoms of anesthetic gases, irritation of the skin, eyes, nose, lungs. So employees have to properly follow the machine manufacturer's instructions. Radiologic procedures, this is for the X-rays. So you have to wear a gown, thick gowns. And that's why if you are accompanying with somebody in the X-ray room, generally they don't allow. Only the patient, nobody else. Because again, X-rays can be fatal. Then developers, that is X-ray film development. So that material is again also a hazardous material. So if you follow shift, then all these things will not happen. Chemotherapeutic agents, they are toxic. They can cause headaches. So it is advisable not to eat or drink where they are stored. Again, in the gloves also there are many types of gloves. Use and throw, reusable, wash, rubber gloves, plastic gloves, cloth gloves, jute gloves, so many types of gloves. As per the medium or which you are handling. Medium means acids, liquids, solids. Chemotherapy agents they are supplied in ampoules. Ampoules मतलब glass का like injection का ampule और wide शीशी बोलते हैं कांच का शीशी. How to dispose of? So it should be sealed properly. There should not be any leakage. There should not be any punctures. What are the cleaning chemicals that you have to use? And P, whenever you are handling chemical, you have to be very careful. Like the chemical which is meant for cleaning the skin should not be used for eyes or for the ear. That should not be like Solvex, which is for the ear, should not be used for eye. Because many things, see, accident happens because of hurry or not concentration, and it happens once and it damages. So that's why you have to be very careful. Adding acid to water or water to acid. That is one of the example. Identify the disease hazards. So that you have to start with your own. Start with your own, like बोलते कि नहीं अपने से चालू करने का खुद से चालू करने का okay. अरे तुमने ये नहीं किया वो नहीं किया not like that. So the maximum weightage for these OSHA standards will be 5 marks and not more than 5 marks. ठीक है हाँ so we'll stop here. Thank you so much. If you have any doubt, you can ask. कुठला? हा तो काय दिले पान